Hi, I'm Mark Shah. I'm the producer for the Lakers broadcast on Spectrum Sportsnet. I would compare what I do as producer to basically being like an architect. During the telecast, I'm calling the replays, I'm talking to the talent, I'm making sure all of our sponsor obligations are getting fulfilled, I'm making sure that we're going to commercial when we should, and basically kind of overseeing the telecast to a certain degree. Before the game, I'll talk to the announcers, and we'll go through a game plan of what we want to talk about in the open and try and set up sort of a storyline for the game, And then if the storyline changes throughout the game, then we just follow the storyline. I know some people kind of getting stuck into the habit of like, oh, we got to talk about the story, even if the story changes, and it's like, you can't do that. You gotta be honest with what is going on. I learned that from like Chick Hearn, you got to be honest with the viewer. So we try to explain that as best as possible. Hopefully the Lakers get a win out of it. Usually we get there to the arena about 6 hours before. Some people get there a little bit earlier. It takes seriously about 50 people to get this show on the air. From everybody back in the office at Spectrum, in our operations department, to the people on the pregame show, to the people in the truck, our AD, a longtime AD, Russell Kadani, has been with the Lakers for over 2 decades now, probably 25 years or so. Our director on the road is Ben Dillenberger. He's a great director. He is cutting the cameras basically and giving you the live shots that you're accustomed to seeing. Anthony Hurd, our traveling audio guy, is one of the best in the business. And then the local crew, we hire about 5 or 6 camera guys that are local to the city, and we bring in the tape guys as well, and then all the other people that are needed to set up the show. From my aspect, it would be almost impossible to do this job if we couldn't travel with the team. The fact that we're on the team plane, it makes it so much better and easier for us to be able to get to each city with the team. And being on the plane is great because, after a year or two, you start to see faces that you recognize, and a lot of the flight attendants are so friendly and accommodating, and they get to become your friends, and when you're in a city, you get to hang out with them a little bit, and it's fun, and they're almost like your family on the road. At the front of the truck is a switcher that the technical director uses. So basically the director is calling out the cameras and telling the technical director what cameras to punch up. If you look at the switcher, it's just hundreds of little buttons that are different colors, and for me, I'd be lost. I'd never know what to do in front of that thing. The director sits next to me, and we communicate to each other, and I let him know which direction we're trying to go in terms of replays. Sometimes I let him know if I see a certain cameraman who has a good shot. I'll occasionally chime in, and he'll occasionally take that shot. And the next row behind me is the graphics area usually, and that's where you see all the stats and the player names and the things that come out of the score bug. Those sort of things. It gets generated on a computer, and then if you go back to the audio room, which I was telling you about, that's where Anthony is in there. I don't know how he mixes a show, because that's a complicated room to me as well. There's so many buttons and levers and everything in that little room, and somehow he makes everything sound great every single show. Further back in the truck is the tape room. The tape guys work on actually something called an EVS machine, and it's almost an instantaneous videotape machine that can call up a replay in seconds. So when the game's closing to the end, we count the announcers off the air, we go to our closing rollout, and we send the show back to the studio for the postgame show. Postgame show takes over, and then that's when our job is not quite done yet though. We still have to send interviews down to the studio. Once we're done with the postgame and we've sent the interviews, we got to make sure that we send all the highlights back. It's usually about a 30 to 45 minute highlight reel that we send back to the studio and to the NBA, so they have highlights of the game. And then once we make sure that is all sent, we get on the bus and get on the next Delta flight to the next city. And that's kind of how we wrap up the day every time.